Hi everybody, my name's David McNabb. I'm an ordinary worker living in an ordinary suburb of Hamilton where I've been for the last 15 years. And I come to you with a very simple message. Ratepayers are not ATMs. I bought a house in 2017 and within 6 months my rates were more than doubled. And I'm now told that under the 10-year plan, rates are set to increase to around $100 a week for the average home. Who here, please have a show of hands for who is happy to have their rates to increase to $100 a week? What? No hands? That's including Waikato Regional Council rates, by the way. So, my job in running for the council is to bring best practices in governance, to hold the council to account, and to involve the community in decision making. At the moment, council members get 2 or 3 days to review up to 1,500 pages of information on things they're going to have to vote for, and they don't have anywhere near the capacity to digest 1,500 pages in 20 working hours. So one of the things that team integrity is going to be demanding as our members come on council is for at least 2 weeks to review meeting papers. That means we can ask you, the ratepayers, for your opinions on matters. That means that we can bring actual democracy. So with our team here, we've got a couple of team integrity members who will be speaking as well. We are going to bring actual governance. Now, my qualification for running for council is not just as a concerned ratepayer, but also I am a member of the Institute of Directors. I served a term on the Council of Massey University, and I will be bringing best practice governance to you. Thank you very much.
Next up is Jeff Taylor.
Hello everyone, I'm Jeff Taylor. When I came to these meetings 3 years ago, when I first stood for council, I made a promise that was really special to me. And that was to try and help breathe some life into our central city by changing some of the attitudes, the negative attitudes people have had about it, and about parking in particular. These were the days where the council used to demand that we pull out a $2 coin and feed our antique meters for the privilege of shopping in town. And most people ended up just driving off to the base or Charlton and shopping with no fuss. So I wanted to see what free parking would look like if it would, and it has worked. A year after I was elected, as chair of the council's parking task force, we introduced 2 hours free in the CBD, and the change has been dramatic. The number of cars parked in the central city on a given day on average is up 16% from where it was. In parts of the central city it's up 20 to 25%. Spending in the central city is up, business occupancy is up, foot traffic is up. But you know what, the best thing? I think we've actually made people feel better about our central city, and that's really important to me. Now I want to keep it going. 2 hours free parking has played a real part in revitalising our central city, and I'm proud of that. Some councillors want to get rid of it altogether. Don't let them take you back to the bad old days, please. Very quickly, I'm a great supporter of the river plan. We finished Victoria on the river. We're about to build a new jetty by Waikato Museum, which will at last open up the city to river cruises and river tourism. I think with a regional theatre going down by the river, our next step needs to be to connect that up with other things on the river, such as a museum, such as a casino, such as the hotels, with some sort of pedestrian access that has great views of the river. Next step after that will be get on with ferrying. Thank you, everyone.
Next up is David McPherson. Kia ora koutou, I'm David McPherson. I've been a city councillor for a while. I'd also like to thank Tim for organising this and his staff, and thank Paula and Andrew, our mayoral candidates, for coming along to check out who they're going to have to work with over the next 3 years. Last time that I stood here in front of you, 3 years ago, I said that I would campaign hard against getting water meters in the city. We won that. Within a couple of months, we'd stopped water meters here. I also said I'd campaign for getting rail service to Auckland. We have got a rail service to Auckland starting in less than 9 months now. The government and the councils, all of them have approved the money for that. So I'm really pleased to be able to stand in front of you and say that we kept those commitments, and there was a lot of help from the rest of the council as well to do that. People who know me know that I'm not necessarily the politest person in the world, but I do get things done, and I think that's important in council. You have to be able to work with everyone else, but you have to get things done as well, otherwise people are not getting value for money. One of the other issues that I'm really concerned about at the moment is city growth. We've currently got 174,000 population in this city, but almost as many just around the outskirts, Cambridge, Ngurumohia, Morrinsville, Taumutu, all of those towns that come into the city to go to school, university or work each day. We're really managing a city of over 300,000 at the moment. It's important that we have good transport systems and good infrastructure to cope with that. I'm very keen on buses as well, getting them working better than they have before. I've been a supporter of the free buses for the disabled. Just one thing on the Rotorua Transport Hub, have a look at the poster on the back wall. That's the new part of the rail service in Hamilton, and you can see at the end of the meeting how that's going to look and where it's going to be. But I'd like to thank you for your time, and thanks to all of the other candidates as well.
Thank you, Dave. Next up is the main show.
I forgot to do the health and safety briefing. Sorry. Hey everybody, my name's Matt, obviously. I'm running for the West Ward, so a little bit about me. You guys are going to hear heaps of stuff about projects and all that sort of stuff from these guys, so I don't want to talk too much about myself, but I'm a would-be lawyer. I own businesses on both the west and east side in Hamilton, and I came here 10 years ago from Scotland, so my main focus is hard work. I like to be a good example, and so I don't want to talk too much about things, and you guys already see how I go over the election period. But my focuses are focusing on core services, and the key one is breaking down the barriers between regular people like myself and these guys up here. So I like to use a bit of the normal language that most people use, break down that political jargon, and then kind of apply what I've learned, through law, business, all that sort of stuff, just like these guys have done. And put it in a sort of format that's a bit more understandable to the regular people. You guys all probably are pretty interested in politics, so you know what these guys are saying, but for a lot of people out there that are trying to get engaged and all that sort of stuff, it's not the case. So if I can come up here and talk like that and all that sort of stuff, and be maybe a little bit cooler than all these guys, definitely, then hey, maybe it'll make everyone else a bit more engaged. So thank you for listening.
And next, Angela O'Leary. Candidate for the mayoralty, but today she's here as a West Ward candidate, as is Louise Hutton.
Thank you, Tim. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Look, I'm just going to touch on a few of the key priorities in my campaign. The themes, I guess, are sensible money management, proudly promoting our city, and always remembering that council works for you. Just a couple of things under those three priorities that you've talked to me about over the last several months of campaigning. One of them is aligning rates to the cost of living, to give you some certainty, because people are concerned about rates. And actually, this week, if you have a look in the Hamilton Press, the Neighbourly did a survey of residents, and the top issue, 33% of people said their top issue at the moment is rates, so I understand that. The other thing I want to talk to you about is over the years, and a couple of my colleagues have also been a little bit frustrated by this, is the inequality in some of our suburbs. Now, I don't think it's intentional by council, but the levels of service that I've noticed in some of our newer suburbs compared to with those like Bader, Glenview, or my suburb, Dinsdale, is not quite right. So I've come up with an idea called a suburban business hub plan, because the local shopping areas where we live and where we visit, those are our locals where we pick up up the Milken, where we might visit our hairdresser, are starting to get run down in our older suburbs. So I've come up with an idea to enhance the amenities there, and then working through the suburbs. Another good illustration is if you look at a roundabout and how that's planted beautifully in Flagstaff, and then you look at a roundabout planted, or not so much planted, in Dinsdale. So there's some equalities there that I would like to address. Thank you very much. I'm Angela O'Leary.
Thank you, Angela. Next up, Jeff Holt.
Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Holtz. I'd like to thank Tim for hosting this meeting. I have a business down in the centre of the city, so I get to watch out my window all day long as to what happens in the centre of the city. We have had 2-hour parking, it has helped, but if you go down into the centre of town, there is still one heck of a lot of shops that are vacant. Now, there are council members who want to basically have the centre of town pretty much like a park with people cycling around in it. And if that happens, we will get less and less retail space in our town. People need to be able to park in the centre of town. They need half-hour parking, they need 1-hour parking. And if I can ask everybody to raise their hands who cycled here today to get to this thing. Good on you, mate. Brilliant. All right? Awesome. All right? The harsh reality is people travel by car, ordinary people. They want to get to their shops. They want to be within about 50 yards of shops that they actually want to drive to. Okay? And it might be something simple, but if we go that one step further than what we already have for this council, then we'll actually get a revitalised city. It doesn't actually take that much. It doesn't cost that much money. I proposed a plan to council with painting lines on the street, which would have added 400 new car parks to the centre of town. It went nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. I was invited by the Hamilton Central Business Association to present to the council my ideas. And I found that the councillors didn't even realise that there were 5,000 parking tickets nearly presented to people along Worley Place alone. Every one of those people will be very reticent to go back into the town to shop. I'm Jeff Holt. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Next up is Martin Gallagher.
When does the clock start? Try and keep it in 20 minutes. Right. Obviously, I'm Martin Gallagher, and I'm standing again for re-election to the West Ward. I believe this is something of a job interview, in my case, a contract renewal interview. And I want to say how humbled I am with the incredible range of talent, energy, and passion up on the stage. And the 6 that are finally elected, what a privilege that is to represent your city. You're hearing policies today. I'm going to ask you to consider a skill set amongst those 6 West Ward councillors. The skill set should be complementary in terms of a range of experiences you would have. I hope I have a range of skill sets, certainly being a former MP, councillor, and a passionate Hamiltonian. I'm also going to say that we have huge challenges. We're a fast-growing city, and I want to acknowledge the work that Andrew and Dave have done, and other colleagues around the Peacock's growth cell, which is bringing more new houses on stream, increasing the supply of houses. And the big issue in our city is making sure that our young people realise the dream that we had, and that is to get into home ownership and to get on with their lives. I'm going to do something that is very unusual for a former Labour MP. I'm going to publicly praise on this stage a National Party MP for the incredible work he did over many years with the other MPs in terms of negotiating with the government to get that funding package on stream for the Peacock's growth cell. I think he deserves a clap for all his hard work. Whatever you do, don't tell Jacinda that I've just praised him, but I do think, and I acknowledged him with our other MPs, is really hard work, and that's the other nub of the issue. As a councillor, you have to work with the government of the day. You have to work with your members of parliament as a team. We are Team Hamilton. Hamilton first in this case. Thank you very much.
I love you too. The check's in the mail. Our next person is Rudy Deploy.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rudy Deploy, and obviously I live in Hamilton West, which is a wonderful place to live. I have spent 8 years as a councillor in the city of Johannesburg, and so I have a pretty good idea of what is required in terms of governance in a city council. I was also trained up in political leadership by the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, it's called. It's a foundation. Now, there's a little song that we can sing, and it's what about a hole in a bucket? There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, dear Liza. There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, a hole. Now, some people actually think that council finance is a little bit like that. The more you pour the money in the top, the more it goes out of the hole in the bucket. So, what are we going to do about it? The song says, well, fix it. That's what we're going to do. We're going to fix the hole in the bucket. Nobody's keen to pay a lot of rents. I noticed this morning that nobody wants to pay $100 a week. So we are going to put together a team as Hamilton Residents and Ratepayers Association, Team Integrity. And they've got the skill sets that we require to make a difference to what you are going to be charged in terms of your rates. So we've got people in legal, we've got people in finance, housing, financial risk, community services, technology, and myself in governance. So we together form Team Integrity. So we are also the forum where we will engage with people. I don't lord over you, I'm not your king, but I am your compatriot. I'm the person that you connect with so that I can do what you want me to do in council, and that's what is sadly lacking, I think. Thank you so much. Vote for Rudy Deploy. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudy, and for the Frank Sinatra. Next up is Sarah Thompson.
Kia ora koutou katoa, I'm Sarah Thompson, standing for Hamilton West. I've spent most of my life here in Hamilton. I was head student at Fairfield College and studied at the Waikato University. I am a lawyer. I currently practice as a community lawyer, so I help people who can't afford legal services with employment issues, family, debt, all sorts of things. But before that, I also worked in commercial litigation, so I've got a broad range of experience there, and worked in property development before that. So I look young, but I do have some grey hair. So I'm standing up, and you also may have seen my case a couple of years back against the government for not doing enough on climate change. And that's something that's really important, particularly for our younger generations, that we are acting to secure our future. So my three priorities are better transport choices, affordable housing, and caring for our environment. Better transport choices, that means being able to walk places safely, bike places safely, and have a really good public transport system. So I'm very supportive of rail and buses. Affordable housing, we need to come up with a plan for Hamilton so that we can look at all the ways that our council can impact on the cost of housing for people and focus on more higher density wells on housing. More housing in the city centre, that's really what is going to bring life back to the city centre when more people are living there. And finally, looking after our environment, reducing our carbon emissions, planting more trees in the city, which is good for our mental health and well-being anyway, and looking after our waterways. So those are my three priorities. I'm running for Hamilton West. My name is Sarah Thompson. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. Next up is Siggy Henry.
Morning, Ngāti Koutou Katoa. I'm Siggy Henry, and I'm, of course, standing for the West Ward. Again, I'm a first-term city councillor, and I'm the only councillor that comes from a non-English-speaking country. I'm married a Kiwi, and we raised 3 awesome kids here in Hamilton. And over the last 30 years, we opened a number of businesses all on the west side. And I did a lot of volunteering here as well. So coming from Germany, from a family of dentists, doctors, and business owners, my heart was always on the environment, on a clean, green environment, on public transport and traffic, on waste minimization, and healthy, affordable homes and diversity. And I'm excited to see a lot of diversity at this election. It's really cool. And in my first term, I had the privilege to be chair of the Waste Minimization Committee, and through that I initiated a lot of recycling, especially at our stadia and in Broadlands and at our events, which we have a lot of. And because of my passion for the environment, I also pushed very hard to have our playgrounds spray-free. That is, for me, with having children playing there is really, really important. And I also support my colleagues here on the cycling walkways. Before I finish, I just want to say thank you so much to Tim and his team for organizing these meetings here on a monthly basis. I've enjoyed them thoroughly to come here. And you probably all know that Tim is a really hard-working MP. And I've seen him over the last 3 years at every community event. And I just loved watching him sharing his passion, his enthusiasm, and his love for this beautiful city. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. As Dave just said, I think this meeting is going to cost me quite a lot. Appreciate that. Next up, Michelle House.
Kia ora, I'm Michelle from the Westwood. What is it between my with this head? Because it's fine. We need to take the power back. We need to I stand with Team Integrity, and we need to take the power back. I've been the Secretary for Hamilton Fish Game for 23 years. I gave that up last year. I was Dinsdale Lions first woman member and first woman president. And I'm a member of Dinsdale Toastmasters, and they have given me a voice. Last Friday, Rudy and I, we actually stood on the Dinsdale roundabout, watching the traffic flow, watching the people that didn't know how to indicate, didn't know what lane they were in, didn't know where they were going. And it was 2 hours we stood there and watched. So I think Dinsdale roundabout really needs to get fixed. We need traffic lights, we need something, because it is so dangerous. The trucks, the buses, everyone that uses that roundabout, it's not safe. So I'm going to challenge Hamilton City Council, NZTA, because I hear it's a state highway through there. I think it needs fixed. It needs work, just like the Hamilton City Council. Last September, I had a massive spring clean of my house and my life, and I think Hamilton City Council needs to have a spring clean of their own. So it's time for change. I think we need something happening in Hamilton. I had I organised a Cousin's Day for my family last Saturday and got them all to come to Hamilton to see what a great place Hamilton really is. So I'm a member of 10 members here. There's three in the west and 4 in the east, but we're all part of a team sporting community. So, positive change for Hamilton. Michelle from Westwood.
Thank you, Michelle. Next up is Theo.
Good morning, all. And first of all, I'd like to thank the people of West Ward for allowing me to serve you as your councillor over the last 6 years. For me, it's been a privilege, and I hope that I have actually earned your trust and your confidence in the last 6 years. Prior to joining council, I spent over 48 years with the police. 27 of those with the former Ministry of Transport. And looking out here today, anybody I think under 30 won't have a clue what the Ministry of Transport was. With all the grey hair out there, I'm sure you remember. The city, of course, is facing major growth, and I firmly believe that we have to support that growth. but that growth must be affordable to our community. As we all know, life is full of choices. And we have people who say we've got to walk everywhere, we've got to catch a bus everywhere, we've got to get a line of scooter somewhere or ride your bike somewhere. But I believe that the people must have their choice. If you want to drive your car, surely you're paying sufficient money now in your fuel taxes, and I am opposed to having a regional fuel tax, which is only another tax which will be placed upon you as a ratepayer in our community. The central government, of course, they take that fuel tax. We pay enough now with our own fuel tax to actually get a further take from a regional fuel tax. So I support affordable growth. I believe we must maintain the infrastructure we have got so that does not break down. We have to seek out financial partnerships with other community groups, the central government, and what we don't need is any more flashy projects. So don't forget, I've served you for the last 6 years. I hope I can continue to do that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Next up, Ewan Wilson.
A very warm good morning to you all. My name is Ewan Wilson. I have been in Hamilton most of my life. I've been in business for well over 30 years. I was very proud to have launched the International Airlines in the past. And I've also been very honoured to have and I've also been very privileged to have served as part of your City Council in the past. I didn't stand for re-election in 2016. I've been overseas and I've gone back to school. I've just finished the General Management program at Cambridge University in the UK and a mini MBA at McGill in Canada. And for the last 6 months I've been working with my wife Monique as a volunteer in the Philippines on an EU and Canadian government-funded development project trying to reduce inequality and poverty. Look, I want to briefly talk about my 4 areas of passion. First one is economic development. Hamilton is an amazing economic centre, a centre of excellence for healthcare, research, academia, technology, and our success, our $8 billion economy, is directly linked to Auckland's $80 billion economy. So we've got to keep focusing on the Auckland growth corridor. We also need to get the basic things right. Let's get the roads fit in terms of congestion. Let's make sure that we actually get the balance right between our growth, our city debt, and remaining an affordable city to live in. I'm passionate about seeing Hamilton be a family-friendly city. That's why 3 years ago I worked so hard to make sure kids under 5 got to swim for free at our pools. I am Ewan Wilson. I would be honoured to serve you again on City Council in the West Ward. We can get the balance right, and I'm asking for your support.
Thank you, Ewan. Be careful. You just need to be careful of this court down here. We have just 2 to go unless Melaina Huaki has arrived. No, then there are just 2 candidates to go. That's Matt Small and Louise Hunt. Matthew Small.
Kia ora, good morning everyone. My name is Matthew Small. I work as a disability support worker and I live in Norton. Now there are 4 key areas I'll advocate for and work as hard as I can if elected, and that's around housing. Rents on average have gone up $30 in the past year, so council have a role to play by working with central government, local developers and community organisations. Improving the management of our city assets, including an independent review of Clauden's arena. It's a very good arena, but for some reason it's losing $9 to $10 million on average a year. So the review will look at how it can make it surplus, if how. It was promised before it got redeveloped. Accessibility around our city. So I work as a disability support worker, and footpaths are an utter disgrace. They are a core service and they are just not up to standard. So I'll advocate and work hard as much as I can to get more money in future 10-year plans. And the 4th area is around affordable rate increases. So you'll get many candidates saying I would have increased it that high last year. but I'm going back to my childhood. My parents struggled with the cost of living, paycheck to paycheck. There were times where mum or dad were unemployed. So having someone around the council table that understands and has experienced hardship could bring better decisions around the council table. At the same time, there's no point promising anything. I'll be one person around the council table. I won't be promising any new free policies. At the end of the day, there is no such thing as free. Someone has to pay for it, and it's the ratepayers usually. First small thing big.
Thank you, Matthew. And last for this round is Louise Hutt. Louise is also standing for mayoralty, but she's here as a West Ward candidate today.
Morena, everybody, thank you so much for having me. Like Martin said, this is a little bit like a job interview, so I want to start by first saying that my notes are on my phone, I'm not on Facebook, and then I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm currently the youngest CEO of an electricity retailer in New Zealand. So I understand the responsibility that comes with providing core services. We have legal obligations to look after our vulnerable and medically dependent customers. So when you turn the electricity off, bad things can happen. So I understand that that's a really, really critical thing. With the first retailer that we built for Well Energy Trust, we reduced the cost of electricity in the Waikato by up to 30%. And for the last year, I've been working on taking those savings to the rest of the country with a second retailer. I work at the cutting edge of technology and innovation, and I would love to be able to bring that to council. I'm also a board member of GoEco, which is just up the road, and it means that I understand the responsibility of governance and how that differs from operations. We're focused on sustainability at GoEco, and for me that's really important because it means we can be effective, efficient and future focused. Our flagship project is Kaivolution, which rescues 18,000 kilos of food waste a month and redistributes that to over 160 charities in the Waikato. We also facilitate our gully restoration, community gardens, bike safety education and biodiversity groups. So needless to say, sustainability is something which I'm very passionate about. But enough about me. My vision for our city is one that we can be proud of, which looks like us and looks after us, one where we can feel safe and celebrated. My key priorities are housing, transport and looking after our own environment. We need to make sure that our Community Lands Trust is a success, so we learn from the mistakes of selling pensioner housing. We need safe ways to get around our city. We also need to be thinking about climate change. An IAG poll from July said that 80% of New Zealand agrees climate change is going to personally affect them, and we need to honour the investment our ratepayers paid into our city by looking after our infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise, and thank you to all the candidates for your cooperation in speaking to time. It does require quite a challenge. As most of you know, I can't even say hello in 2 minutes, so I admire the fact that you've done that. In a moment, we're going to put the regional council candidates under even greater pressure because they only get 90 seconds. But just before I do that, a number of you have written questions and some of them have been given to me. If you haven't yet done so and you would like to, please fill them in. We're going to try to ensure that every candidate gets at least 3 questions to answer. It won't be possible, obviously, for all of them to answer all the questions, but we'll try to keep it fair. Right, we're going to move now into the regional council pitches, and I invite them to come up as they've drawn lots, and they are in order: William Durning, Jennifer Nicol. I've written 5 down. I think Barry, you were 3, weren't you? You were 5? Sorry, something's going on. Right. Well, because Peter Koizumi isn't here, it's in order of being drawn: William, Jennifer, Angela, Barry, and Russ. So William Durning first.
Kia ora. I'm William Durning, and I'm seeking your vote for the Waikato Regional Council. I'm a husband, a dad, and over the last 22 years, I've owned my own businesses here in this city that I love. I've drawn from and been privileged to contribute to a community that I love, and now I would like to give back. I have a lot of commercial skills. I'm a chartered member of the Institute of Directors, and in the last 4 years, I successfully completed a turnaround of the Waikato Chamber of Commerce as its chief executive. We face significant challenges, from climate change, improving regional public transportation, growing a sustainable economy, and of course, water quality and allocation. These issues that we face must have decisions made, and they will affect not just us, but our children and our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren for generations to come. In choosing me, you have someone who has a strong commercial background. I'm open-minded and open to all points of view before I will make a decision. I'm a great collaborator, and I've got strong networks across our region. I'm energetic, enthusiastic, and most of all accessible. In choosing me, you choose a better future. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Next up, Jennifer Nicholl.
Kia ora, my name is Jennifer Nicholl. I'm standing for the Waikato Regional Council. I have been employed by Fonterra for the past 7 years, working as an environmental manager across the Te Rapa and the Piako sites. In that time, I have gotten to know the local communities. I have been controlling the environmental risks from the activities on site, and also looking after the legislation that they have to abide by. So before that, I was I gained a Master of Science in Molecular Biology at the University of Waikato, and had 5 or 6 years working for the Auckland Cancer Society Research Centre in research and development. My main priorities are to value the environment more. I think the data is very clear that we haven't been doing that enough, whether it comes to waterways, biodiversity, or climate change, or take your pick of any other items. And secondly, the collaboration that Council can do to connect the dots for our well-being is something I'm really excited about. So that is something that I promote strongly. And lastly, it is obvious to me that there are less than 15 people under 45 in this room, and so I would very much hope that the way that they get their information is something that local government gets a lot better at. So mainly social media is something that I would hope to promote there as well. I would look to work very hard to represent you all and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next up, please, Angela Strange.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself. I'd like to begin, like Martin did, by acknowledging Honourable Tim Macindoes for the work that you've done in our community and that you continue to do. I currently work as a school teacher, and prior to that served in a church-based environment with my husband, helping our local community. That is why I'm standing for Waikato Regional Council. People are important, and people make up our communities. Our region is a great place to live, to work, and to raise a family. And it's important that the growth that we're experiencing is well planned and sustainable. I'm committed to prudent financial management, ensuring smart infrastructure, smart investment, and providing our core services cost effectively. We must ensure that our transport network is well balanced, efficient, and accessible, giving people the options that they crave. Now, water is also an essential resource requiring protection for the future generations. The health of our waterways is an important component of this. It's important that we value the healthy air and soils, biosecurity, and ecological restoration. Thank you. Strange.
Thank you, Angela. Next up, Barry Quayle.
Good morning. When I joined the Regional Council as a councillor, my objective was to make council more effective and efficient, because fundamentally that's what you want from a council. I got alongside the CEO and other councillors and drove a system of changes and policies that would result in savings of time and money and enhanced decision making. I brought the concept of business intelligence to council, which is being embedded over the next 2 years. I want to continue that work. I also believe that you should expect from a councillor demonstrated competency in stewardship and governance. I have that. I have served in various senior roles and I've been on many boards. You probably know me as a former general manager of Field Days, which when I brought through a number of major changes to advance that organisation to become an internationally known organisation. I always believe that organisations, and especially councils, can do better, improve and be more efficient, which is very important when it comes to your rates. So vote Barry Quayle. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. And last in the opening pitches, Russ Remington.
Kia ora, katoa kui. Thanks for coming today and hearing councillors and persons that will actually represent you in the community. I came here 51 years ago. I set up a business no further than 200 metres from where we are now. It was Remington Advertising, and small companies at that time were Gallagher's that were in Norton Road, and he had 12 staff. National Field Day is a founding member, and ended up to be a great client for the next 35 years. I joined the Hamilton City Council and spent 12 years and 3 years as Mayor. During that time, we had dramatic change. It was about actually coordinating, getting people on side, sharing the vision, and we did some major projects that were always in the two-half basket. We built the stadium. Most persons were wanting to go Cape Town and Wellington size, and that was going to be $200 million. It was never going to happen. The likes of the walkway around the Hamilton Lake, difficult, we did it. The Innovation Park, put off for years, we did it. The Transport Centre was a tight site, and we bought the Placemaker site, and that ended up to say, hey, we care about public transport in the city. When I stood with the Waikato Regional Council, they were talking about 33 and 30% rate increase, like hell. The last 3 years, I certainly had a major role in the getting the train to Auckland. Most people at the council said, no way, we've done it.
Thank you very much to the regional council candidates, and as I say, I do feel for them because they often don't get acknowledged at all at these meetings, so I'm glad they've had a chance to make a pitch to you. I guess the one thing that they have over the others is that we have all of these candidates for the West Ward, most of them sadly can't miss out. That's just a numerical fact. Whereas there are 4 positions to be filled from Hamilton for the regional council. There are only 6 candidates, so most of those we've just heard from are going to be regional councillors in a month from now. So I hope that's some consolation. Right, we've received a number of questions. Some of them were individually targeted at 1 or 2 candidates. The majority are more general. It isn't possible for everybody to answer every question, so they've been very cooperative with the timing already. We're going to try to keep to 30 seconds per answer. That can be difficult in complex issues, but it's one of the skills they have to master. Just so there are no great surprises, there have been questions that have come in on rates, there have been questions that have come in on fluoride, there have been questions that have come up on the future of Claudelands and on Fortune Theatre and that type of thing. I'm not telling you all of that just so that we're not going to get any surprises. I'm sure you'd anticipate most of them. What I will do, therefore, is give candidates a chance where there are general questions to say, yes, I'd like to have a go at that. It might only be 3, it might be the whole lot. But we'll keep a record of who gets to answer them and ensure that everyone gets a fair go. So, in no particular order, we'll just take them thematically. There have been several on the Founders Theatre, so we'll start with that. Any candidate to answer, what should happen to the Founders Theatre? David McNabb.
Hi again, everybody. I am an IT professional, specialist software developer, business analyst. I am passionate about entrepreneurial startups. The Founders Theatre site can be repurposed into a technology hub and incubation area for collaborative working. These have proved immensely successful in other countries and spawned major new successful ventures. Facebook, Apple, Uber, the like, all started from these kinds of ventures.
Sarah Johnson.
Kia ora, Sarah Thompson. So it's not economical to repair the Founders Theatre, so we need to look at other options for that site. The council actually doesn't have, a whole heap of assets, and so I think it's really important that this stays in the community, but what happens to it should be decided by the community. One potential example of what we could do with the site is actually create an inner city park, playgrounds, green space, that kind of thing, because we need to attract more people to live within our city centre and have good quality of life. But it's up to the community.
Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else want to answer? Jeff Taylor.
Next time. Yeah, look, I agree. Got to be honest here. I think it needs to be demolished and returned to green space. We can't afford to have. We've got a new regional theatre down by the riverbank. We've got Clauden's Event Centre. I think we're going to have to demolish it. We've got that Western Town belt there, and I think it'll make a great addition if we return it to green space. Fabulous place for a great park.
Thank you, Jeff. Angela O'Leary.
Thank you, Tim. I don't support demolishing it, but I also don't support turning it into a theatre because we've already got that. There's a lot of heritage and history around Founders Theatre. It was built from some of our founding fathers. So it's important to me that some part of it is retained, and we're desperate for community space, for community organisations. But for me, it's actually your decision. You've paid for it. It's your city asset. So that's a decision that's been parked by the current council until the final funding of the theatre has been achieved.
Thank you, Angela. It probably makes sense to deal with the Claudelands question because the two obviously are interconnected. So do you support selling the Claudelands Event Centre? Why or why not? What other form of management might you be looking for? Some of you address this in your opening remarks. Michelle Houghton.
Kia ora. I think we should keep Claudelands. So when they revitalised the Waikato show, I was the coordinator. I somehow got the job of coordinator for the Waikato show, and we got all the Lions clubs involved. So it's a brilliant asset. I've been to Claudelands a number of times, including Wednesday night with the mural candidate, but we need to keep it, and we need it to make a profit, and it's an ideal venue.
Thank you, Michelle. Dave McPherson.
Look, I don't think you're going to be able to sell it and recoup your costs. I think that's a simple fact of life. But what we could do is get outside management in. We're trying to manage it, an organisation that's not skilled at managing big places like that. It is something that we need in the city. It's not something that we have to actually run. But it is going to be a drain on ratepayers' funds for years to come, no matter who runs it. You have to be realistic about that.
Thank you, Dave. Matthew Small.
I'm calling for an independent review. So, as I said in my opening remarks, it's losing $9 to $10 million a year. But if an independent review can send a blunt message to council on how to cut costs and see how it can make a surplus, if it can't make a surplus, how can we get from $10 million to maybe $1 or $2 million deficit? That means we're saving up to $6 to $7 million a year.
Thank you, Matthew. There have been a few questions on similar, so if it's not exactly the wording of your question, but it's on the same topic, I hope I'm marrying them together quite well. Right, the next one I'll go to is on water meters, and it's addressed to those against water meters. Can you please tell us a fairer way to charge for water than charging for that actually used as determined by metering? So, for those who are against water meters, can you please tell us a fairer way to charge for water than charging for that actually used as determined by metering? Angela O'Leary.
Thank you. You already pay for the water. You already pay for it in your rates. Look, Hamiltonians are exceptionally good at responding when we have a water alert to water conservation. So for me, I'm very opposed to water meters. It's about conserving water and doing more educational things. I'm also interested in the council looking at a home insulation and grey water tank scheme, because I think that will also help us conserve water. But actually the council did try very hard to reduce water costs by partnering with some of our regional partners, and that didn't happen. But the government's going to force us to look at this issue again very soon.
Thank you, Angela. Anyone else on that? Martin Gallagher?
Well, first of all, before you get this so-called fair system, how many millions of dollars are we going to spend to retrofit the water meters around Hamilton? And just imagine the cost to you as a ratepayer or a consumer, because either you as a meter, that'll be on the charge. Look, no form of charging is perfect. I think we have a system where we pay with water through our rates. I think by and large we're responsible good citizens when it comes to the don't spray your garden on a certain day and, the water conservation. Totally pick up what Angela says. We've got to have a combined water operation. We've got to work with our partners, because frankly there are huge efficiencies we can do if we work together with Waipa, Waikato. We're still on that place. But water meters, honestly, particularly for low-income families, I don't think it's enough.
Thank you, Martin. Ewan Wilson.
Look, I'm certainly against water meters. The reality is council needs to take responsibility to fix its own water pipes first. We're still losing a high percentage of water even before it gets to you, number one. Number two, it would cost $28 million to install them. Number three, the people who will be penalised the most are those with large families, the older people in the community. You already pay for the water. We can improve water usage by education and improving our own infrastructure.
Thank you, Ewan. Anyone else on that one? Okay, Rudy Deploy.
My first question would really be, why would you want water meters? That's the question. You already paid for the water, so why would you want to spend all this money to get water meters? Now, I have noticed that some people have said that there's conservation. The minute you bring in water meters, you conserve water. There's other ways to conserve water. Just think about how much water we waste every day when we open the tap and wait for hot water to come. So let's find other ways to do this. This is really silly. We don't support water meters.
Thank you, Rudy. There's a question that I think will only need a yes or no answer, so in a moment I'm going to put it to all of you just to raise your hands. It's on the free parking. Just so you can be thinking about it in fairness to the candidates, so you've got an idea of what's coming up. There's one on making the council possibly force the council to force developers to build accessible units, and there's another one on the water quality in Hamilton Lake that was directed at one candidate, but it could be Savani. The question from one of the members of the audience to all the candidates: do you favour the 2-hour free parking in the CBD? I'm going to get out of the way so that you can all see. Do you favour the free parking? Put your hands up, please. And so those are the candidates that's the question. Do you favour the 2-hour free parking? Those who are opposed to the free 2-hour parking in the CBD. Okay. Right. Okay. The question only wanted a yes or no answer. It might be that you get an opportunity later if you feel you need to go into that in more detail. Right. As I said, there's a question here. Would the candidate, and this is for anybody, consider making the council force developers to build accessible units, say 1 in each block of 10? I'll read it again. Would the candidate consider making the council force developers to build accessible units, say 1 in each block of 10? Would anyone like to have a go at that? Ewan Wilson and then Louise Hutt.
Look, I have spoken on this matter in the past. Council needs to use incentive and stick regime. We have development contributions, and I think it's in the best interest of council to incentivise developers that when they build high-rise apartments or apartments, that they do make some accessible. And we're not just talking wheelchair-friendly to the front door. I'm talking about wider doors into bathroom kitchens that are designed to enable those with disabilities to have a proper access. We do it by discounting the development contributions.
Kia ora. I would like to ask why we would make 9 out of 10 apartments or dwellings accessible only for a few. Because when you make, it's called universal design, when you build for everybody, that means it's accessible for everybody no matter what your stage in life, no matter where you're at, no matter what your abilities or disabilities. And so we should really be implementing best practice of building for everybody, not just a few. And I don't think 1 out of 9 is good enough. It should be all of them.
Thank you, Louise. Anyone else on that one? Oh, sorry, Dave McPherson.
Look, Louise is right, and if you look at even the number of people with disabilities of some sort right now, it's up around 30%. It's absolutely crazy to try and restrict that. We should definitely have all new builds, and especially apartments where the high rises accessible, because as Louise said, accessible for one is accessible for all. That's what's important in the future, and we'll also need to be supporting redevelopment of some of the older areas so they become more accessible. We were just debating footpath yesterday that wasn't accessible to wheelchairs. How crazy is that?
Thanks, Dave. Right, we'll move on to the next one. This was addressed to Angela O'Leary, and it's on the water quality of Hamilton Lake, but I think it's fair to give everybody a chance to answer it if they wish to. So I'll read out the question. What is your stance on the water quality of Hamilton Lake, Rotorua, and the Innis Common Park?
Okay, it's a really good question. Look, I think this council has, and previous councils have been grappling with the water quality down at the lake. It's something that has happened progressively over a very long period of time. There is an action on the books to address it, but it would be come at a significant cost. We are also bound by legislation to work with Tainui on any water bodies in the city. So I certainly acknowledge that there is a problem there. I also acknowledge that council is looking at it. It is on the list, but it is a significant issue to deal with.
Thank you, Angela. Siggy Henry.
Yes, there is a group in Hamilton that is actually working on that issue, and they're working with NIWA and some other scientists from the university to look at the water quality in the lake, because they all remember the photos, and that was before I came to Hamilton, where people could swim in the lake. And I think we would love to have a swimmable lake again, but is it possible? It might cost a lot of money, but it might be possible. So we just have to encourage that group to keep working at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Siggy. Jeff Taylor.
Thank you. Ultimately, this is going to be a decision for the public to make. It's because, yes, it probably can be done. It would be a huge project to restore it to the days where we used to be able to swim in it. If we're going to undertake that project, in the next long-term plan, the council could go out to the public and say, do you think it's worth it? Is this a priority for you? It's going to be expensive. How important is it to you? So I think that's something we should ask the public in the next year or two.
Thanks, Jeff. As I say, there are a few questions that are focused on one person in particular, so I will ask others in a moment, but I'll try to ensure that everyone gets a chance at others. Next question is, what do candidates think are the most important transport and infrastructure projects for our city and region in the next decade, and how should they be funded? What do candidates think are the most important transport and infrastructure projects for our city and region in the next decade, and how should they be funded? We've got lots of people wanting to do that. The first one I saw was Matthew. We'll just come along the road.
I think it should be in partnership with NZTA, central government and local government together paying for it. And I think there should be an option for everyone, whether you want to cycle, whether you want to go on buses, or whether you want to drive. You shouldn't force people out of their cars. At the same time, I support incentives like cheaper bus fares, not free. Remember, there is no such thing as free, but if we can make it cheaper, and more reliable, then we can all have options to get around the city.
Thank you, Matthew. Louise Hunt.
I want to bring your attention momentarily to our road toll and how absolutely unacceptable it is. And when you think about how we improve our road toll, ideally to zero, you have to give people other options. The train to Auckland is going to be an amazing start to that. When you have joyful ways to get around the city, so when you enjoy walking, when you enjoy cycling, that gets you out of your car. And I mean, it's not about forcing anyone anywhere, but I mean, I'd much rather be cycling along our river path than I would be stuck in traffic on Victoria Street.
Sometimes struggles, and the only way to do is to turn them to one.
Right, talking about funding, so obviously public transport and things like safe walking and cycling are really important. Funding-wise, we've set aside $500 million, or earmarked that in the long-term infrastructure plan to widen roads and add another bridge in the north to deal with future congestion. That's crazy. That's not the way to deal with congestion, because you build wider roads, more people drive, it never fixes the problem. So the first thing is reprioritising how we're spending. And the second thing is working really closely with central government, because we're missing out on funding by failing to work properly together with our regional partners.
Thank you, Sarah. Michelle Houghton.
I really support the train, but I think the train needs to go, they need to form a train from Hamilton to Auckland to Tauranga, so the golden triangle. My sister lived in Tauranga, so I'd visit her more, but it needs to be a golden triangle, and also with the flights. My cousin flew up from Nelson, and it cost him $100 to get from Nelson to Auckland. He had to go by Auckland, and then when he went home, it was Hamilton to Wellington to Nelson again. So it needs to be addressed as well.
Thank you, Michelle. Leo Truman.
I think we're forgetting the fact that Kiwis love motor cars. And it seems to be bred into us. And it's going to take a generation or two before we can actually do that. In the meantime, of course, you know, as I mentioned before, when we buy a tank load of gas for our car, the taxes go to central government, which is for your building of roads, your road user charges and all those things, pay for the building of roads, and so do developers when they're building their subdivisions and those sort of things. So it's partnerships all around, and let's have people have a free choice.
Thank you, Leo. Peter Boss.
Peter Boss. The focus should be on around schools and school children. What we need to do is create a transport network that kids can feel safe. Parents feel safe that their kids can travel independently to school. Our biggest now, and if we don't change, is transporting to school. So if we're looking where to focus over the next decade, it is in our children and making sure that they can act independently so that they can be independent in the future.
Thank you, Peter. Jeff Holt.
Thank you, Tim. If we're talking about the next decade, then we're talking about things that will be revolutionising how we travel. And that includes electrical vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. If you want to have a look, you might want to laugh, but you have a look at Lilium. It's coming online in 2025. All right, so you'll be able to fly to Auckland in about 20 minutes. Travels at 300 kilometres an hour, and it's going to radically alter the way we do. If you're talking about a decade, so we need landing strips for those sorts of vehicles.
Thank you, Jeff. David McNabb.
Yeah, hi again. 5 years ago, I was proud to be part of a process that tripled the number of motorcycle parks throughout the city. Motorcycle parks can fit in 4 times as many vehicles as car parks, and I'm proud of that because motorbikes produce less carbon emissions. Now, let's take it a step further. I would advocate for preferential parking for hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles, and providing charging infrastructure for electric vehicles. The petrol cars we're driving are on the way out. Let's embrace the future. Thank you.
Thank you, David. David first.
Thanks. A lot of good ideas here, but just about all of us who live in Hamilton or around Hamilton know how bad the traffic congestion is when school's in, when parents are taking little Johnny or Susie to school. That's a massive problem in the city. That's what causes most of the congestion. So our plan is to make school bus travel free, and within the next couple of years, so that we can actually tackle the major congestion. There's a lot of other ideas here which we also need to bring in, but if you want quick runs on the board, do that and get government support to do that. We're on the way towards that with the free weekends for school kids, and it's proving very popular. We'll get them out of the cars.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else on that? Siggy Henry?
Well, we coming from Europe and seeing what's happening over there, and nothing happens overnight. It all takes a long time. And one of the things that I've been challenging NZTA is really about driver training, because in the end, we in New Zealand, sadly to say, we're not the most amazing drivers, especially when it comes to more cyclists, e-scooters and so on. We need to learn how to get around them, and once we feel safe on other modes of transport, then we'll have a chance to use it more.
Thank you, Siggy. Right. I think the next one is probably one that could just be answered with a show of hands as well. The question is, are any candidates intending to stand as candidates for a political party in the general election? So, I'm definitely getting off the stage now. So, if you are considering standing as a candidate for any political party in the general election next year, would you please put your hand up? I think that was a no. Okay? Right. Suits me, but anything can change. Right, we've dealt with that one. Now, I think I signalled that there was a question on fluoride. Siggy, I think you won't be surprised to hear that this was addressed to you, but I'll give everybody a chance to answer it. Would help if I hadn't just put it on the seat. No, sorry, it's on this one. Do you accept that the majority of Hamilton ratepayers want fluoride in their drinking water, so that if you get elected to Hamilton City Council, you will not waste time and money rekindling the fluoride debate? Do you accept that the majority of Hamilton ratepayers want fluoride in their drinking water, so that if you get elected to HCC, you will not waste time and money rekindling the fluoride debate? So, Siggy, I'll give you first chance because that was sent by you, but anybody else who wants to answer it is welcome to do so.
Thank you so much. And yes, it's, you've seen it in the paper again, I assume. What happened? Look, I haven't in the last 3 years. I actually didn't bring it up. And I have never said that I would bring it up. So I won't bring it up. Okay?
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Well, the question wasn't do you support fluoride? It was just, would you bring it up as a candidate? No. Okay, so thank you, Siggy, you've answered that. Next one, I think, is one that everybody can have a go, and it's about rates and the council's finances. Just make sure what is the true state of the council's finances? Two questions here, but I guess they are related. What is the true state of the council's finances? Would you support a cap on rates increases of no more than 3%? I presume that's 3% per annum. We'll make it 3% per annum. So what is the true state of council's finances? Would you support a cap on rates increases of no more than 3% per annum? David McNabb.
Yeah, this has been my major driver in running for council. Deep and serious concerns about the financial delinquency of council. Running up the MasterCard, we're pretty much maxed out. Council debt is approaching $1 billion. We need to cut the rates rises. We need to rationalise spending. I was part of a process on Massey University Council of restoring sanity to Massey University's expenditures and making Massey University financially sustainable. And I want to bring that learning to Hamilton City Council as well, and to keep our rates rises down. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Matthew Small, I'm just having a look. There are 4 candidates who have now answered 3 questions, so I'm going to give preference to those who haven't. But if there's time available, I'll still give the others a chance as well. So Matthew Small.
My view is 3.8% or lower. So if we can look at how council can cut costs, we should look at it. But at the same time, I can't go around promising anything to you. I would be one voice around the council table. So it would, there's 13 other councillors and the mayor around the council table. So 3.8% is my position, but you have to look at everyone else and where they'll go. So, sorry, no promises.
Thank you, Matthew. Jeff Taylor.
No, I won't make a commitment of 3%. I'll tell you what happens if you keep rates artificially low. What happened to the last council, you don't maintain your assets. Think Founders Theatre, think $11 million on Waterworld, think the fact that we've had to double our transport budget to make up for what happened in the last 6 years when there wasn't enough maintenance done. I won't make a pledge like that. What I will say is we've caught up, thanks to Mayor Andrew King and this council, we've caught up. We are now in a responsible position where we're not borrowing to keep the lights on, and now we are in a position, and our rates are actually the 24th cheapest out of 67, so let's keep it in perspective.
Thank you, Jeff. Charlie Brown.
Why don't we compromise? Because the rate is already up. Yeah, I agree with that. And if you keep on putting up, and then of course they keep on increasing the rates to the same time. But you don't have to, because if you do the infrastructure proper and make everything right from the start, rather than jumping up and down and spending all the money, why don't you compromise? Then we don't have to put the rates up. And but as half the guys said that, we have to, because we have to keep the city growing. That's another thing, but not too much.
Thank you, Shanti. Ready to deploy?
There's no easy answer to whether you peg or put a ceiling or a cap on the rates. That's reality of running a city council. Everybody is aware of the fact that the current councillors that inherited a dismal health that was run down and money had to be put into projects. Now that is the same thing, the whole thing, remember the hole in the bucket? I want to tell you something, there's also a cost in fixing the hole in the bucket.
Thank you, Dale Eisen. Anyone else? Sarah Thompson.
So firstly, I just want to say that I've spoken to former staff at Hamilton City Council, and pegging rates to CPI is not realistic because the cost of infrastructure goes up a lot faster than other aspects, other things which are actually calculated in the CPI. I do support really responsible spending. We also need to look at how the city is growing. So if we're sprawling out, we're having to spend a lot more money on new community facilities, new services, and we're not getting good money for value for the infrastructure we're putting in. By building out, we can get a lot better value for money from development contributions.
Thank you, Sarah. Michelle Houghton.
My question is in regards to rates. So I've been a ratepayer for 15 years, and why do we get charged different rates? I mean, we pay for the water going in to our house, and we pay for the waste going out. And the rubbish collection, I used to work for Trans-Pacific, but that's what we pay for. We pay for water coming in, the roading needs to get fixed and that sort of thing, but why do we pay different rates?
Michelle, you and Wilson.
I'll try and keep this very brief. I think 3% is aspirational. I think it's a little unlikely to achieve. I think it's between 3 and 3.8, and we won't have to cut if it's around 3.8. What we do need to do is be more innovative with how we pay for our growth. And one of the areas I'd be really interested in exploring is special purpose vehicles. They're a mechanism whereby the burden of those infrastructural growth costs are moved off the balance sheet of council, and the ratepayer isn't burdened with them. We can be more innovative, we can be more agile, we can get the balance right.
Thank you, Ewan. Leo Turman.
Sure, we can definitely cut rates, no two ways about that. But what that means, of course, is your street lights are going to go off at 5 at night. Your rubbish is probably only going to be picked up about once a month. All these sort of things. So if you want to cut the services, sure, you can cut the rates. But I will definitely be sticking with the 3.8%, which we've promised.
Thank you, Leo. If no one else wants it, I will give Angela a chance. Angela Mary.
Thank you. You were told that the 9.7% rates increase was needed to keep the lights on, and yet we've just delivered a $6.5 million cash surplus with that 9.7. So council took money off you this year that they didn't spend. Look, CPI is something the government is also looking at now, and it can be done. We can align rates to the cost of living, and that's one of my policies, because we need to find innovative ways to fund the things. It's not about cutting essential services. It's not. That sounds politically clever and good, but actually it's not reality, and government is looking at CPI because it's affordable to you.
Determine the 6.5 million meant to pay down debt.
Thank you. No one else on that one? The next one was directed at Louise, so I'll let her answer. I don't actually think it's one that others are going to. Well, it's up to them. The question is, well, I shouldn't jump to any conclusions. Louise, you are the CEO of an electricity company. How many employees do you have in your electricity company, and what is the approximate turnover?
Well, I mean, if anyone else wants to answer any questions about my electricity company, you're welcome to. No, wonderful question. So we have about a staff of about 12. So think about the Genesis building in town, how big that is. Think about how that's one building across the whole country of all of their staff. And think about what Genesis prices are. We're able to offer cheaper services because we use automation. And what that means is we don't have a man who drives out to your house and looks at your meter and then writes it down and then brings it back in. We use smart meters, we use technology. Turnover is commercially sensitive information.
I presume. Well, sorry, does anyone else wish to answer the question about Louise as well? No? Dave, I think you get this question every time, so again, I'll put it to you, but let everyone have a chance to answer it. And it is, today, because you do not live in Hamilton, so why should you be on the HCC? And if anyone else doesn't live in Hamilton, we'll give them the chance to answer that as well.
You're right, I do get asked this every time, and I've made no secret that I live just out of Hamilton, but since I've started on council, Hamilton's grown out towards me, so I reckon if I wait another 3 to 5 years, I am going to be in Hamilton. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Sarah Thompson.
So I have a house in the west which we're planning on moving back to. I've been working in Auckland for the last 2 years. I'm down here at the moment about 5 days a week, but continuing my job up there just to keep the lights on. So we'll be in the west if I'm elected. So stays not in the west ward on the electoral thing, but it's only temporary.
Thank you, Sarah. Right, we are almost out of time, and I'm grateful to Cafe Agora for letting us go a little bit longer than usual. And thank you again to the candidates who've been very cooperative. There are a couple of candidates who haven't had a chance to answer a question yet, and two have only answered one. 3, in fact, have only answered one. So I think the question should be, and anyone can have a go, but I'll give priority to those who haven't answered. What was the question you were hoping to be asked, and how were you going to answer it? Matt.
I've already had this one, and it's actually this exact question and this exact answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I believe in rate restraint. But the thing is that you've got to actually pull together what you can do and what you can't do over time. So I want there to be more of a forward focus rather than there is at the moment. What we tend to be talking about is things that people know rather than things that people can get into. Well,
thank you. It's Davis.
So the question I was hoping that you'd ask and you haven't asked is,
you would ask me, how amazing am I? I'm incredibly amazing. You should most definitely vote for me. I will advocate for everything that I possibly can, but I totally stand for consultation with the community and community engagement so I can represent you correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Martin, you've only had one. It's not like you.
Am I going to stand for Parliament and oppose Tim again? Absolutely not.
Does anyone else want to? Okay, Rudy. Yes, you had three.
I was hoping somebody would ask me whether I give singing classes. The answer, of course, is no, and I actually get paid not to sing. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Boss.
I'm going to share an idea with you. If you've seen over the last couple of months the little dashed lines along the cycle lanes, what I'm suggesting that we do it again. We do it again this time at 2 metres out from the curb, everywhere. So your car lanes will go like that. It'll feel different initially. They'll soon disappear if you drive over them. But for cyclists, it's been okay for cyclists to have their cycle lane disappear. So it'll be as a trial to see how you feel if your car lane does the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Well, I think more by luck than good management, we're actually going to finish right on time with everybody having had a chance. This really is your last. Shanti, did you want to answer that question?
Hi, you guys. It's nice to be here, and glad all of you come. And my question and answer, I've been here for so long. I think I always care about my community because we're a multicultural society, and I love every one of them, no matter what agenda or what nationality you guys are. But I think what we should have is make more help for the youth so they can carry on, and so we can give a more hand to the community. I think we should be, the city council should be that most priority. I think us should be looking after the community. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanti. I have married a few questions, but I promise you I haven't censored any of them. I think we've asked all of them. The only one that I've got here that I haven't asked is a lady in the audience has asked, where do all the candidates stand on racial separatism? But then underneath she says, please do not answer, I already know. So I'm assuming that's what she means. But if she would like to, and this is your question, was it? You do want to ask it? Of anyone in particular? Sorry, I can't get you to come forward and make a speech. Would you like somebody to answer the question? Where do all the candidates stand on racial separatism? I presume that's in either on the council or in the form of appointed boards or something of that sort. Does anyone want to answer that one? No? Okay. Okay. Well, look, what I would suggest is that if you wish to talk to any of the candidates afterwards, you can do so. And of course, that applies to all of you. I'm sure most of the candidates are not going to rush away. That also includes the regional council candidates. So it's your chance to have a bit of a chat with any of them individually. Can I thank you all so much for being here? I know some have had to drift away, which is understandable, but your stamina over the best part of 2 hours has been impressive. A reminder, we're here again, same time, same venue, a fortnight from today, to hear from the candidates for the mayoralty, and that will include 2 people who are on stage at the moment and the other 6. Oh, and Paul. Paula just invited us that she's in the audience, and Andrew, who was here as well. I thought you were saying you're 2. Thank you so much to you, as I say. Thank you to the team from Agora. Thank you, Robin, Valerie, and Alison from my office, who have done a lot of work behind the scenes to make this possible, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you to you, the candidates, very much indeed. You've been well engaged, very respectful to one another. I think you've done your level best to answer all the questions. Thank you to the regional council candidates as well. I'm sorry that you've been a little bit shortchanged, but I hope you found it valuable being here. I can only end by wishing you all luck. I'm glad to see you not thinking. Thank you all very much. See you in a moment.